Okay, you should all see my screen right now. There will be a picture of me in the middle that's kind of vibrating here as I talk. I want to show you really quick how we can communicate during this Hangout. If you have any questions, if you don't want to unmute yourself and ask it verbally, you can do it via chat. Up here at the top right of your screens, if I click on this, I can see everybody that's on the meeting here. Right next to that is chat. So in here, if you've got a question, you can type that and I'll be watching this. If anybody is having issues hearing me or seeing the screen, type that in here now so I can see if I can troubleshoot things for you. If everybody is good to go, just give me a thumbs up or an okay there in the chat. As you all are typing here, I will let you know that we are going to, we might be a little bit less than an hour. It kind of depends on your questions and how deep you want me to go into some of the compare and sale aspects. They're really pretty cut and dry. What I'm going to do is walk through compare first, and then we're going to walk through sale. They're very, very similar. Like I said, if you want me to stop and redo anything, start over, show you how I got somewhere, feel free to either unmute yourself and talk or put something in the chat. Looks like everybody is good to go. We are trying to record this. So just so you're aware, we're recording. And then if I have any technical issues, if I go dark all of a sudden, which happened last week on one of these, just hang tight. I've got a backup computer that I can run over to and just pick up where I left off. So again, if I go dark, just hang tight and I will be right back with you. It's always fun dealing with new technology and trying to figure this out. So, all right, let's get started. Thank you all for joining. We are going to dive in here to the back end. The only thing that I'm going to cover during this session is compare and sale and how to set these up for your clients. I am logged in right now. I'm logged in as a super user, so you're going to see a lot of different things. It's not just my stuff in here, but I logged in, I clicked on the hamburger over here, and I'm in CRM. You know what? I need to fix something real quick so I can actually see chat and see questions. Give me just a second here. Can you all see, are you seeing the black presentation screen, or are you seeing the REW backend right now? If one of you can type in the chat and just let me know which screen you're seeing, that way I make sure that I'm good. Thank you, Shelly. Wanted to make sure that you're seeing the right screen here. Okay, so I am in the back end. I went to CRM, and over here on the left-hand side, we're going to go into compare. You can get to compare a couple different ways. I think this is probably the easiest for me to teach, is to have you go right over here to the compare. And then from here, we're going to start from scratch and add a new one. So I've clicked on compare over here on the left, and I'm going to click here on the plus button in the upper right here. Very similar to where that plus button is on other screens when you add buyer searches, etc. So from here, I've got two options. The one up top is to search by somebody that's already in the system. So if you already have a client that's in the system and you want to set up a compare for them, you would start up here in this search field. If you don't have an existing client in the system and you want to start from here, you can. You would click right down here on create new report. I do want to show you, Shelly, you've got a problem. Are you not seeing? Oh, hold on. Let me do something really quick. I'm going to unshare and then reshare my screen. Thank you for letting me know. Give me just a second here. I'm actually going to stop and restart so I get the right screen that I'm sharing. Hold on just a second. Gotta love technology. Okay. Is everybody seeing the REW screen here? Hank, okay, perfect. Thanks, Janet. Thanks, Shelly. We're good. Okay. Resume. All right. So as I was saying, you can start from either an existing lead up here, or you can start from it and create a new contact in the CRM. It will put it over on the buyer side as well if you start from here. You might start with somebody new if you've met somebody, for instance, at an open house and you want to keep them up to date on what's going on in that neighborhood. I'm going to show you really quick on this search screen how you start with an existing lead, because it can be a little tricky and this seems to foul some people up. Make sure you pay attention. Right here it says or. So as I'm typing in a current contact, if I type in Christian Faker, that's one of my test contacts, and hit search, nothing is going to come up. This is an or, so it's first name, last name, or an email address. So if I type in Christian and hit search, now I get every contact that has Christian associated with it. Right down here, this is the contact we're going to use. And we're going to hit create report. And it's imported the information from that contact. So I've got first name, last name. I usually teach not to put in a title. The title is redundant when the client sees it. So I would recommend, unless it's really necessary, and you've got, for instance, an investor that's looking at multiple different compare reports, there's really no need to put a title in. This would be the title of the report. I typically will recommend that you leave that blank. Next field down is property address. So I'm going to put in an address here. I'm going to pull up an old address mine. This is querying from Google Maps right here. So it's going to pinpoint the house right here. If this doesn't look right and it's mapped the house wrong, you can grab this and move it and put it where it needs to go. But that looks fine. That's where the house is. Down below, it's going to have you confirm the street address. So the street address looks good. Over here, you do have, these are querying from MLS. So you do have to input from the dropdown what city, county, subdivision, state, zip code we're in. Some of this will, like zip code auto-populated, but it won't auto-populate these dropdowns. So it's suggesting Olathe, which is correct. So I'm going to go ahead and select Olathe. I'm going to start typing Olathe here. And I need to add this from the dropdown. And then county is Johnson. The subdivision, they're suggesting Park Hill Manor. That is correct. But I still need to type it in here and select it from the dropdown. Kansas is correct, and then zip code. Down here, this information auto-populated from a previous one I was doing. So this is not correct information. I'm going to hit copy property address. You do need to have a property or mailing address down here below. Next thing on this screen is going to be our email settings. So first thing we're going to select is our frequency. This is a frequency in which the client is going to receive update emails from you on the compare report. If you've not used compare before, it's really a great tool to stay in touch with clients and potential clients. It's not just for sellers. I like to set up my buyers up on this tool as soon as they close so they can pay attention to what's going on in their neighborhood. They're always curious when new houses come on the market, what they're listed for, what they've sold for. So it's really a great touch point for you to be able to give them, this is a valuable information that they want. They want to know what's going on in the market. They want to know what's going on in their neighborhood. You know, these compare reports really allow you to stay in touch with people and give them valuable information. So enough with that little tangent. Email frequency here. I'm going to select monthly on this. I'm going to pretend this is somebody that just closed on a house. They're not getting ready to buy, so they don't really need daily updates. I'm not going to give them weekly. I'm going to give them monthly on this. But those are your 3 options on the compare side. Down here, we're going to select agent options. When do I want to get emails? Do I want to be emailed on new listings, on price changes, on status changes, or when the user enters the site? I'm going to just select new listing on my side. And then this is the seller option. When do you want what emails do you want them to receive? I'm going to go ahead and select all of these and then hit next step here. We're done with our input screen. Anyone have any questions? I'll pause here and wait. If anybody has any questions or want me to go back and show you anything I did on this input screen, type those in the chat. I'll wait just a minute here before I move on. Looks like everybody's okay with what we did now. I'm going to go ahead and hit next step. This takes me to the report detail criteria. So in here, I'm going to set the criteria that the client's going to see on their report. I'm going to start up here with the map and then work my way down. It automatically queries a radius for me. I don't necessarily like a radius. In most areas of Kansas City, we're on a grid system, and I honestly prefer to do a polygon versus a radius. So I'm going to clear. Right up here are my options for the map. I'm going to go ahead and clear, hit this X next to radius and clear that. And instead, I'm going to draw a polygon. I know the bounds of this neighborhood pretty well, so I'm going to draw. I'm going to go outside of the neighborhood just a little bit. That's the block that I want to include in my report. Now, if I want to drill down further, which I do, I always start with the map, and I'll show you in just a second why I think it's best or easier to start with the map. So I've got my map set. Up here, I'm going to hit this little, they call it the caret, and this is going to give me report criteria. The information that you really want to pay attention to is up at the top. It does have every field that we have in our search criteria is here. But keep in mind, this is a compare report. You're not trying to limit information like you would in a buyer search as they start getting the funnel smaller. You want to keep the funnel really wide on the compare reports. The last thing you want is to limit the information so much that the client sees a sign go up in their neighborhood and they go in here to see what it's listed for. And because it's a story and a half instead of a 2-story like what they live in, they don't see information and they assume that your report or your information is incorrect or it's not, not populating, and you're going to lose their interest. So I stay really wide with this. I don't bracket price range unless it's a really unique property or it's in an area where, there's a lot of areas of Kansas City close to downtown where they're doing tear downs. And if this is a house that isn't a tear down, I might bracket price, but for the most part, I'm not going to. I'm not going to bracket bathrooms, bedrooms, garages. Right down here, if my map, this is querying from my map. So if I had included parts of Overland Park, it would give me the option. Let's do that so I can show this to you. I'm going to pull my map over just a little bit. I want to edit my polygon. So I'm going to pull over into here. And then go back to report criteria. Oh, come on here. Hit refresh and see what happens here. Yep, it didn't save my new polygon. Hold on. I'm just going to start over with it. Sometimes that's easier. Okay, so now I'm going to go back here to report criteria. Now you're going to see I've got the option. Now my map is pulled in 2 different cities. If I only want Olathe, I check the box. If I want both of them, don't check anything. They'll both pull into your reports. For the purpose of this report, I'm just going to pull Olathe. Down here, it gives me the subdivisions, and these are the subdivisions that are included in that map. So if I don't start with the map and I just leave it with the radius, it's not going to give me necessarily the subdivisions that I want. So that's why I suggest starting with your map first and then coming in here and drilling down on subdivision. So I'm going to go ahead and leave all the subdivisions in there. If I didn't want to include some subdivisions, let's say I just wanted to include theirs, I would check the box the subdivision that they live in. But if I don't check anything, it's going to include all of these. I hope that makes sense. For the purpose of this, I'm going to go ahead and check a couple of them because I don't necessarily want all of these subdivisions. The report's going to get really long. School district, same thing as city. My map crossed over between the Blue Valley and Olathe School District. If I just want to show houses that are in the Olathe School District, I check that box. Down here, next fields are days for non-active. This is how far back do you want them to see sold data? And we do display the sold price. It defaults to 30, but you can go as far back as a year. I like to go back 90 days. I'm going to leave the radius range blank because I'm using a polygon on my map. If I wanted to increase that, if I'm using a radius and I want to increase the distance of the radius, I can do that in this field right here, but we're going to leave it blank because I'm using a polygon. Down here, we start getting into the criteria that I typically don't get into on a compare report. Again, I like to keep it really broad, but you certainly can go as detailed as you want to. That is personal preference. I like to stay right up here at the top. That's about as far as I go. I'm going to go ahead and click this button, Refine Report. So now it's going to update on my map based on the selections that I just picked. So I had the map covering this entire area, but because I only selected those several subdivisions, these are the houses that it's going to pull in for me, which I'm fine with. This is your guide over here to what each color means. Down here, it tells you what you just did in your report criteria, what subdivisions you've included, et cetera, pretty self-explanatory here. Down below, it gives you a preview of what the report looks like today. So there's 2 houses in show for backup, there's 3 in pending, and 1 sold. If I'm in an area where I've got some outlier properties, something where, you've got maybe the original property sitting in the middle of a subdivision and it sold recently and it's showing up on your report, and you don't want it to show up on your report because it's going to skew all of the data that they get and the averages, which I'll show you in just a minute, you can ignore it. So if I want to ignore one of these listings, hit ignore here, it's not going to show up on the client report. I can go in here at any time and unhide it. The clients don't see that I'm doing this. They don't see that I'm hiding or unhiding report or houses, and they can't do this. Once I feel good about this, I'm going to hit save and proceed to the next step. If I'm not getting any results down here, I'm not seeing what I want, I can hit this reset criteria button and it'll reset it back to where it was when I originally came into this screen, and I can start over. Let's go ahead and hit save and proceed to next step. Again, feel free to stop me anytime if you have questions, you want me to slow down or show something again, I'm happy to do that. This screen is the welcome email that goes out to them that tells them that I've set up the compare report. So real quick on this screen, this is going to be the subject, home compare report introduction. If I want to receive a copy of this, I'm going to check this box right here. We'll go ahead and check that. Down here is the email body field that's already populated for you. It has this template attached to it. I'm going to go ahead and copy myself on it so we can flip over to my email and I'll show you what this looks like from the client perspective. It's going to put in whatever first name you have in the contact. And then your email signature goes in here as well. So not much you need to do in there. If you want to go in there and update some of this language, you certainly can. If you want to say something else here at the beginning, you can come in here and type and do whatever you want to. Down here, you can go back, you can skip this step. So if you don't want to send them an email, you don't have to, or you can go ahead and click send email, which we'll do for the purpose of this one. Okay, so I want to go in, and here's the report right here. I'm going to go into report summary. And this gives me some information on the criteria and the information, basic information on this report. Down here, the notification settings, what I've set. And then if the client has opted out for anything, it'll tell you that right here as well. Right above the address here is what I call the magic box. And this is where you can navigate and take a look at the report, make changes to the report. From here, we can convert this. Once it's a address that's gone live in MLS, we can convert this to a home sale report right from here. We can send an email to the client about the report. We can suspend the report. We can delete the report. Let's go in and take a look at what the client sees on these reports. I'm going to hit View Client Report, and it's going to pop me over to the front end. Just want you to get a sense as to what the client sees on their side. So up here, they're going to see these menu options, and right now we're in Home Compare. So this is their Home Compare report. Here's the map. Gives them the same key guide. If they click on these listings, it's going to pop up and show them kind of a quick view of these, which is nice. If they click on this again, it takes them to the full listing view. So a shortcut for them to see what's on the market or what's sold, what's under contract. Down below, it puts it in a table format for them. There's 4 different screens of information here. The first is the competitive listing view. Right here, they can see kind of, this should look familiar. It looks just very, very similar to our old site. Over here, it's going to give them status change and price change history, price, days on market, et cetera. Again, if they click on this from here, they go right back into that full listing view. At the bottom of each section, so this is backup listings, at the bottom of these is a summary that tells them the original list price, the high, low, average, the current list price, the list date, and the days on market. Same thing here for pending listings. And then sold listings is where we give them a little bit more information. So up here, we just did this enhancement. If you look under the sold listing here, now we add the sale price. So we're telling them right here on this screen what it sold for and what the list price was. Over here, we've got status and price change history, which is nice. The flag on the left, Rick, I'll get to that in just a second. I don't think that does, actually, I don't think that does anything on their end. Here we go, here's a key right here. It indicates a change or a new listing. So the flag will flag the client. Right now they're all flagged because this is the first time the client hasn't viewed any of these. As they come in and view this more often, the flags will indicate anything that's changed since the last time they logged in. Okay, so down here, back in sold listings, again, we've got our average, low, our high. I do like that it shows the original list price, the latest list price, and then the sales price. Of course, our averages are all based on one listing, so they're not exactly averages. We've got our list date on here, and then the days on market. So good information. This is the type of stuff that people, that our contacts want from us, is this type of information. So great information to be able to provide to them. Easy to set this up. They're now set up to get this monthly, which is really nice. Let me show you what these other views look like. This just takes it's more of a list view for them versus the pictures. Again, if they click on the address, they can get taken right into the full listing display. Over here are graphs, and the graphs give them some stats. Remember, I was talking about on the input screen that we don't want to get too crazy with criteria because all of this data will then be skewed. We want to give them valuable information, valuable data that isn't skewed. which is why I keep things really broad on these. But as I mentioned, when we were in input screen, if I'm in an area where I've got a lot of tear downs and there's a huge difference in price, I might bracket price so it doesn't really skew these graphs. So this is a price comparison, sold comparison, days on market. This shows your state, county, city, the zip code, and then the subdivision. If there's no active listings, those are going to come up as 0. This, you've got something in the subdivision because we've got a sold listing in there. Down here, we show them absorption rates, list for sales price, original list for sales price, some good information for them. And then this 4th tab, any questions about that before I move on? The 4th tab is a way for them to communicate with you if they're ready to sell. They click on this, they can click this button right here that, yes, I'm ready. That just flagged me as the agent, just sent me an email, a text message that these clients are ready to sell their house. So great way to stay in touch again. Great updates for us. Okay, any questions about Compare? Do you want me to go back in and walk through one more time? I'm going to assume that your silence on the chat means no. Thank you, Denise. Appreciate it. I will tell you a couple just nuances with Compare. If you have a client set up in the system, and when you set them up, you put in alternative secondary email address, they will get copied on the emails that come from Compare that's updating them on new listings and price changes, just like they do on the search side. They will get those as well on the Compare side. There isn't an option over here on this side to put in an alternate email address. So if you've got it, if you start from the Compare, so if I'm in Compare and I don't have somebody already in, I'm not starting from up here, I've got to create a new lead report. I don't believe, unless they've changed this, I don't believe there's a spot in here to put in an alternate email address. So what you would do is get the primary set up and then go back into the contact. I'm going to hit search up here and pull up this contact. I go to edit. And then in here is where I'm going to put in the alternate email. So a little bit of back and forth, but right now in Compare, we don't have the ability to add that secondary email. So if you want to add a secondary email in Home Compare, you've got to go back into the lead and set up that alternate email. You can't do it from Compare. But if they're already set up in Compare, you already have the secondary email address, they're going to be getting those listing alerts, market changes. All right, if everybody is good with Compare, again, these are pretty cut and dry. Let's pop over to sale. Before I come over to sale, does anybody have an active listing that I can use as a guinea pig? I promise I won't send anything to your client. But if you've got an active MLS number that I can use for this. Rick had a question real quick. I'm going to stop. If you want to type in chat an active MLS number, in the meantime, I'll answer Rick's question. He's asking if husband and wife need to be set up as separate leads. That is really personal preference. I like setting them up separate. The system just works better that way. However, that's really the preference of the client and who they want driving the search or Compare. On Compare and Sale, I think them getting the information at the same time and sharing is okay. I know that's a very vague answer to your question, but it really comes down to personal preference, and really the personal preference is up to the client. I will say most of them on the search side, I usually set them up separate because most of their search accounts, whether they're on Realtor.com, Zillow, Other brokerage websites, they're typically set up separate. They're used to being set up separate. This system functions better as a CRM if you have them set up separate. But if you're just using it for compare and sale, you might set them up as a primary and then do an alternate email address. Does that answer your question, Rick? Okay. Anyone have an active MLS number? Otherwise, I'm just going to pull a random one. All right, let's head over to sale. We get there the same way. It's right over here on the left-hand side. We're going to click into sale. It's going to look a whole lot like compare looked. Here's home sale right up here. You can only set up home sale if you have an active listing. So you set it up almost identical to how you set up compare, but unfortunately we can't have you all get in there and play with it unless you have an active listing. It feeds right in from MLS. So I'm going to go ahead and walk through setting it up. It's going to look a whole lot like compare. We're going to add this plus button right up here again. Click on this to start a new one. I'm going to let's start from new report on this one. Last time we started on compare, we started with an existing home sale or existing lead. Let's start a new one this time and walk through that process. Really, the only difference that you see here is I'm now adding an email address, and it has a field for a password. It auto-populates. This isn't an issue with the website. I know that I've talked about this ad nauseum in other Home Suite classes. This is my Google Chrome that's auto-populating email addresses and password. That's my email address and password to access the site. So I need to clear that out. What I want in there is my contacts email password. I'm going to do hopefully Rocky Road doesn't have an AOL account for real. I do not recommend putting a password in for a client on any of our systems, especially on Home Suite. Let them set that up. When they get the welcome email, it's going to have instructions for them on how to set their password. But just from a holistic approach with this website, don't set their passwords up for them. That's all I need to get started with them. Just like on the search side, I need a first name, a last name, and an email address. On this one, I don't put a title in again. I think it's redundant. Down here, I'm going to put in an active MLS number. If you start typing in, I'm logged in right now as a super user. If you start typing in MLS numbers, the only thing that will come up for you is the active listings that you have that are under your MLS ID. So if you go in here and you start typing in to play with this, it's not going to work unless it's an active listing. We're going to go ahead and select this listing. This is actually Randy Canoy's listing from the College Boulevard office, but it's mapped it right here. That's correct. I'm going to leave that alone. Again, just like compare, if it's not mapped correctly, I can grab that and move it. I think maybe I can't move it here. I should be able to move it, but it's not wanting to move for me. Okay, down here we've got street address. It pulled in our street address. Looks beautiful. Correct subdivision, state zip code. We don't have to do a whole lot here. I'm going to go ahead and hit copy property address for the mailing address down here. Again, this should look very similar to compare. On email frequency, it's going to be a little bit different. It's going to be either daily or weekly. Remember, this is an active listing. So do you want them to get email updates either daily or weekly? I will tell you a little caveat. This does tie in with your showings and showing time. So showing appointment confirmations, feedback, those alerts are going to be push notifications. Those are going to come through as they happen. The frequency is overridden by those. But anything on the new listings, the price changes, status changes, that's really what you're selecting here in the email frequency. So on this one, it's an active listing. I want them to know daily what's going on. They certainly probably, like most sellers, will want to know daily. Over here, my agent options. This is when I want to receive emails. If I want to manually approve feedback, I need to select this right here, manually approve feedback. So if I want those automatically generated to them, I'm going to leave that unchecked. If I want to control what feedback emails they're getting, I need to check this box. I'm going to go ahead and select these. That way I know when they're receiving them. Market activity is a little bit different, obviously, than it is on Compare. You can log all of the marketing activity that you're doing in sale, and that will email to the sellers to let them know what's going on with their listing. So over here, again, this agent options. Over here, we've got seller options. I'm going to select all of these. I want them staying up to date. And then we're hitting next step. Before I go on, any questions on the input page? I feel like I'm going really fast. If I need to slow down, please let me know. Rick asked a question, do these directions override showing time instructions? Are you talking about notifications from showing time or the actual showing instructions on showing time? Are you talking about the showing, your response there, it's an either or. Are you talking about the, okay, approving feedback? I don't know the answer to that question on approving feedback. It's not going to override the showing instructions you have in showing time. My recommendation, you probably, those options in showing time, if you have your client set up to receive the feedback from showing time, and you have them set up to receive the feedback in sale, you're duplicating your efforts. They're going to get duplicate emails. I would do either or. So either have them set up in showing time or have them set up in sale. The difference between the information they're going to get in showing time and sale is showing time, it's just showing in feedback. In sale, they're going to get marketing activity, market update reports, etc. So my recommendation is if you're setting them up in sale, don't set them up to receive all of that feedback and notifications and whatnot after the fact in showing time. I'll verify that that's accurate and email that to everybody that's on here, but that's my recommendation. Denise asked a question. In the old My Home Search, a lot of the marketing activity was automatic. I don't know the answer to that. I believe some of it is automatic and some of it has to happen manually. Once we get there, I'll be able to tell. I haven't had an active listing since we've updated this sale platform. So I'm not 100% sure on that, Denise, but I will definitely find out the answer. If I can't answer it during this session, I will get the answer to that and email it to you. I'll email it to the whole group after the session today. Anybody else have any questions before we move forward? Okay, I'm going to hit next step. This should look really familiar if you were on when we were walking through Compare. We're pulling a radius. Again, I don't like radiuses, so I'm going to hit this X up here. I'm going to delete the radius. I want to draw a polygon. I always want to click and hold, and it's not a click and hold when you draw a polygon. It's just a click. Click and release. I'm going to draw my polygon here. I'm going to hit the caret again to go to report criteria. Down here, I'm going to pick what neighborhoods, what city I want included. I'm going to go ahead and include all of this. Days for non-active. I'm going to go back 90 again. I'm not doing any of this other criteria. You know what I do on this one? I want to do property subtype. In that map, we might start pulling in some townhouses and duplexes. So I'm going to go ahead on this one and select just single family, since this is a single family home that's on the market. Any questions in here in report criteria before I click refine report and get out of here? All right, we're going to hit refine report. This looks just like Compare did. We've got our actives down here. This does show them, tells them right here that that's their home. Anything in backup is right here, pending, sold. Again, you have the ability over here to ignore houses if you want them ignored and hidden from client view. As long as I'm good with this, I'm going to go ahead and hit save and proceed to the next step. This takes me to the welcome email. If I want to be copied on this as the agent, I would select that box. I am going to skip this step on this one. And this takes me to the summary screen. Let's go in and take a look at what the client sees. Actually, let's do marketing first. Denise, I'll try to answer your question here about the marketing, what's automated and what isn't. So the report summary, if I click on the magic box, we've got a couple of more options now as compared to what we had in Home Compare. And we've got marketing right here. So I'm going to click on marketing, and down here is what was automated. So these things were automated. And if I want to submit anything else that I do that's extra, and I'll get a list of what's automated for you, Denise. Let's say I want to say on the 15th, open house is scheduled. Hit submit. As soon as I hit submit, the client has now gotten, should have an email in their inbox as long as I've selected that box. Check that box on their email updates. They now have an email in their inbox that shows that that I've put in this marketing activity. Right here, I can edit or delete. I cannot edit or delete these automated ones. And it looks like on the automated ones, I'll have to verify this with Scott, but it looks like on these automated ones, it's going to date it for the date that you put the sale record in. So even if this came on the market a couple days ago, it's going to date it for today. And I'm wondering if as the system updates, if that date changes, and I will find that out from Scott. I'm making a note of that. Date unautomated. Okay. Any questions while we're in the marketing activity? Again, I'll get a list from Jean and Scott and Valerie on what's automated in here. Is there anything that you think that needs to be automated in marketing activity that needs to be on our radar? Sorry, my telephone's ringing. Okay, I don't see anything over here in the chat. If you think of anything that needs to be on our radar as far as automating for marketing activity, we'll let you know. There was a question. Perfect, Janet. I know that that is included. Price changes are definitely included. I wonder if it can flag any other updates aside from price changes in MLS. I don't know that it will, but I will ask. For instance, if we update pictures, etc., I don't know that that can be automated, but I would definitely come in here and log that in if we do it. Denise, good question. If you enter in, if you've got an open house that's logged on MLS, would it reflect over here? I'll find, I don't think it does now, but that's a good suggestion. Putting that down on my list. If you think of anything, I'll keep watching the chat over here. Rick, the screen shows, that's because I put it in for the 15th. When I came up here and put in that marketing activity, I put it in for the 15th. So if I have an open house scheduled then, I'm going to put it in then. If I've got a broker open that is scheduled for Tuesday, I might go ahead and put that in. You can put stuff in ahead of time. You don't have to do it after. If I have put something in for an incorrect date, I can't edit. So if that's going to be on Sunday, it's not on Saturday, I can go in here and hit edit. And then once it's done, I might come back in here and hit edit, tell them we had, 15 groups through, biggest feedback was the smell. Okay, I don't see any other questions before I move on from this. If anybody has any, you can put them in chat and I will come back into here if need be. So let's go look at what this now looks like on the client side and what they're seeing. I will back up just a minute on the showing activity. I did verify that if you input a report into sale, let's say the property's been on for a week, that the past showings and past feedback will load into here. So anything that's done in the past will load in from showing time. It won't load in if you have changed MLS numbers or if you're a secondary listing agent. Somebody else has had the listing and now you're getting the listing. Those will not load in. But if you're just inputting a new record, starting somebody in here and maybe you didn't hit them right when the showing went active, it will import the showing activity and any feedback. Hopefully that made sense. Okay, let's look at this client report real quick and then we'll come back and look at showings. I don't know if anything will come up for this listing or not because I'm not the listing agent, but we're going to find out. Okay, so here's what the client sees. Again, they're going to see these messages or these menu options right up here at the top. We're now in home sale. Right here, they can look, they can menu between the report. Right here is listing. So if they want to click and view the listing, they can view it right here. Here it says days on market. How many views on our website, and then how many showings. You know what? I'm going to look at something really quick. I want to see how long, if this truly was listed today, because I may have picked an MLS number for something that was listed today, and that's why that date is showing up as today, not because I input it today. Bear with me for just a second. Thank you, Rick. He verified it when active today. Good to know. I appreciate it. So I believe that date and marketing activity will go back to the list date. It won't be the date that you input it, but I'll verify that. Right down here, they can click view listing details. It takes them to the full listing public view for them, for their house. Let's menu through and look at marketing here and see how this shows up. So this will do a log for them of everything you've done marketing-wise. That's how it is displayed on the client for the clients. And then showings, let's see if anything comes up here. Oh, it does, it populated. Yay, we can look at this. So these are future showings here, what's coming up. And then past showings, when they have past showings, they'll be down here. And I believe that feedback is displayed, or they can click through to look at feedback. But my understanding is that the feedback is shown on one of those fields, but I'll get clarification on that today. Any questions on those tabs, on the showings tab? I had somebody last week, and I know I talked about this a few minutes ago, ask me why they would use sale as opposed to just setting them up in showing time. And I touched on it a minute ago, but I think the importance of using sale is that A, you keep them in your ecosystem of kansascityhomes.com, even when they're transitioned from a buyer to a seller or just a seller. You control the information here a little bit better than what they have in showing time. And really, it's a lot more information than what they have in showing time. They don't have all of this information if they're set up in showing time. The only thing they see there are their showings and feedback. Here, they can keep an eye as to what's coming on the market. It's really kind of a live market update for them that I used to spend hours every week putting together market updates for active listings, and this really takes it and puts it into a live format to them so they can go in and see this at any time. When I was doing my weekly market updates, which I still do or still would do to some extent, just to give them some thoughts and feedback, but those become outdated as soon as I printed and sent them or presented them. This is really live good information for them to keep an idea as to what's coming on the market, what's going under contract. As homes sell, they can see sales prices. Really a lot more information for them in this platform than they would get in showing time. Okay, any questions before I close out of the client side here and go back to the back end? I'm going to close all of these tabs because we don't need them open. All right, let's go over to the back end. Let's look at showings here, what we see. So this is the view for us with showings. Why it says past up here, I don't know. Those should say future. I'll have to flag that for IT to take a look at. Over here, we can add seller, we can add comments, our comments for the seller if we want to. I'm not sure on this where feedback shows up. My guess is it's going to show up right underneath here, the showing agent comments, once feedback is entered. But since these are future showings and we don't have feedback, we can't view that right now. Any questions while I'm in showings? Couple of things just from a holistic standpoint on sale. If you are a team or you have two listing agents, only one can have a sale report. So it's linked to the MLS number, and once somebody claims the MLS number, which has to be a listing agent, a secondary agent cannot input a second home sale report. It's only one per MLS number. So just keep that in mind if you're on a team or have dual listing agents, that only one person can have the sale report record. I hope that made sense. Okay, Hank just told me something that he got an answer from Scott. Okay, Scott says the marketing notification email doesn't show the selected date within the email. I'll follow up with him on that and get some clarification. You can, right from here, I didn't realize this was here. I learned something today too. Right from here, you can email the showing agents. So if you want to send out a broadcast announcement, you can do that right from here. I'm not going to go forward with this because I'll be emailing agents for a listing that I don't even have. But right here, you can put the subject, the body. Great tool. I didn't even realize this was here. I learned something today. I'm going to go back before I mess this up and send something to people that I shouldn't be sending it to. Shelly asked if you can convert this back to home compare after. That is a good question that I don't know the answer to. I'll find out from Scott and Jean what happens after it is sold. I know it stays active for quite a while before it drops off from sale, but I don't think that it's set up to convert back to a home compare. If you've set this up for your seller and they've moved on, they probably don't care to pay attention to the neighborhood anymore if they don't own property in it. But if they do, you could always set up a compare report for them. You can conversely take a compare report and move it into a sale. So you don't have to start over. You can take a home compare report. Once that house becomes active, you convert that into a compare report. Okay, Shelly, so compare for the new neighborhood. I would just set up a new, you wouldn't want to convert this one into compare, because if you did that, it would show the old neighborhood. I would just start over with them. You can have multiple compare reports for a client. What you cannot have multiples of are sale reports. Those are tied to a MLS number. The compare reports, if you want to set up 7 compare reports for one client, you can. So my recommendation for the new neighborhood would be to set up a new compare report for them, which you can absolutely do. Any other questions? I know we're winding down here to the top of the hour. I hope that this was helpful walking through input on both of these. I know I wasn't able to answer every one of your questions, but I've got them written down, and I will certainly let you know and email you answers to some of these that were asked. If you have any other questions or want to shoot me an email with questions, feel free to do that. Go back to chat here and see if we have any other questions. Rick, if you are hanging on and doing the home suite, the next level where we're going to go into groups and campaigns in the CRM, it's going to be the same link. You can hang out here. I'll keep my screen up, but I'll probably go dark until that starts at 10:30, but it is the same link. Thank you for the feedback. Appreciate it. I'm glad you all found this useful. It's always weird to teach virtually when I can't see or hear people. I feel like I'm talking to myself, but glad you all learned something. Home sale and compare are pretty user-friendly to walk through, so it makes teaching it pretty easy as well. Thank you all. I am going to go over and I'm going to stop presenting at this point, stop sharing my screen. My recommendation is to jump in while it's fresh and you're at your computer, jump into home to the back end and get somebody set up on compare, even if it's just yourself. Get somebody set up, walk through it. If you have any challenges or questions, again, feel free to email either myself or you can send emails to homesuite@kansascityhomes.com. I'll put that email address right here in chat for you. If you want to copy that, save it to your address book. That is the help desk for compare, or for home suite. All right, have a good day. Hopefully some of you are, I'll see you again in about a half an hour here for the next level on the CRM side. Thank you all.